was 25 when I finally got my first horse, and his name was Snoop. It was August 25th of 2013, early in the morning. It was a Sunday morning, and my phone rang, and it was my horse trainer. So I picked up the phone, and he said, "I don't know how to tell you this, but Snoop is gone." A few weeks after Snoop's passing, Jeff and I were speaking, and he just said that he was tired of we as an equine community just accepting the fact that horses get injured or pass while humans aren't around. And if humans could intervene quick enough, they could have a very different outcome. So that's how Night Watch started to come to be. This is something that truly moves the needle on equine survival. This is something that has the potential to save your horse's life.
Well, thanks everyone for watching that video. No matter how many times I see it, it's still very difficult, and it brings me back to that morning of August 25th. I am Jeffrey Schab, the founder and CEO of Protequus here in Austin, Texas, and it's a pleasure to be with you all once again. I want to first start off by thanking David for allowing us this opportunity to update you all on our equine technology here in the US and Canada, known as Night Watch. I welcome any questions directly following this presentation, and without further ado, I will begin. So as you all heard, it was August of 2013 when we lost one of our beloved horses, Snoop, overnight to colic, largely because no one knew he was in trouble. So immediately following that, I asked myself one simple question, and that question was, what if 300 horses a day didn't have to die to colic because we could be alerted to early signs of pain and distress, especially overnight while these animals are unsupervised. So as a biomedical engineer, as well as an equestrian, I established a company to set out to answer that question, and that company is known as Protequus. The name may be self-evident, but it's the derivative of two words, protection, and the Latin root for horse, equus. And so we're very proud to have introduced an IoT-enabled, AI-driven wearable device for horses known as the Night Watch SmartHolter, which is available today in the US and Canada as a subscription service. So let's talk a little more about equine colic and why it's the leading natural cause of death in horses worldwide, second only to old age. This represents about 120,000 deaths per year, resulting in $360 million in annual losses. And so I think it's important to deep dive as to why, even in 2022, is colic still a problem? Well, let's begin by understanding that horses are prey animals. They are genetically programmed to hide any signs of pain or distress, as that could be perceived as a weakness. Let's also talk about the fact that many of our horses are unsupervised more than half their day, especially overnight. So that's when their true colors of pain and distress come out. And so our goal with the Night Watch program is to reduce the time to intervention, ultimately to increase clinical outcomes. And so historically, we've relied on subjective behavior observation only when we're physically with our animals. And with Night Watch, and today, we want to flip the script and have empirical objective analysis of both biometric and behavior through technology. So let's talk about Night Watch. Night Watch is available in the US and Canada as a subscription service, starting as low as $49 a month. Each subscriber has access to real-time information on their animal's biometrics and behaviors, but ultimately this is a service designed to alert you to early signs of pain or distress in your horse. Each subscription comes with a free Night Watch SmartHolter, as you can see depicted here, as well as access to a free mobile app, which is available within the Apple Store and Google Play. So as you previously heard, our goal is to reduce the time to intervention, ultimately to improve clinical outcomes in these animals. But over the last few years, as different caretakers, breeders, trainers, and owners have started to play with this technology, it became apparent that veterinarians saw innate value for in-clinic applications, especially on those post-operative cases. And so it's our goal that we can not only reduce the staff to veterinarians and vet techs, but also provide them a tool that allows them to generate new revenue while improving the quality of care through real-time monitoring of these animals, especially the high-risk animals during their time of need. So within the crown of each halter is 2.7 ounces of embedded technology of various sensors, microprocessors, transceivers, batteries, and more. And ultimately, these are designed to monitor the animal's heart rate, respiration, activity, distress levels, as well as their location. And we use a very unique sensor technology called ultra-wideband impulse radar to monitor those biometric inputs. We use a 9-axis IMU for their activity as well as an altimeter. And we'll talk a little more in a moment about distress, as this is one of the most unique and differentiating aspects of Night Watch. And ultimately, what we're able to do is quantify pain or distress on a 10-point scale as defined as deviation from their physiologic normal. So as you know, with most AI systems, it does require a learning period, which in this case is approximately 2 weeks. But upon completion, you now have a single number that serves as a surrogate for your animal's well-being. And we also have a GPS module within the device so that if you get an alert, you can know where your animal is. Speaking of alerts, alerts are not just push notifications to the app, but rather you set up a profile that says who do you want to be notified and in which medium. So you have an unlimited number of people who can receive a text, a call, as well as an email if the threshold of your animal's EDI is crossed. Even in the absence of alerts, you still always have on-demand access to objective insight at your fingertips within the mobile app. So what makes Night Watch so unique? Well, I think we can boil it down to 4 very unique offerings of the system. And the first is the fact that we needed to create our own AI software stack because of the small nature of the technology. And why is AI so important? Well, again, every animal is different. We know that. And we needed a way to be able to adapt to each animal over time. So the first aspect of Night Watch is its ability to develop personalized distress models for each and every horse. As you heard on the previous slide, the learning period for this is approximately 2 weeks. But once you are complete with this, you simply have to set a threshold and look at one number between 1 and 10 as an indicator of your horse's well-being. We know that a lot of barns don't have reliable wireless technology, and so we needed to create a solution that was able to acquire, analyze, and process information right there on the horse in the absence of Wi-Fi connectivity. And so this is referred to as point-of-care edge analysis. Now, I don't want to mislead you. We still need ultimately Wi-Fi connectivity or cellular connectivity, as the device does post information every 5 minutes to the back end. But what's most important is the analysis and acquisition of data is done outside the absence of that connectivity. With regard to the acquisition of heart rate and respiration data on the animal, we use another cutting-edge technology known as ultra-wideband impulse radar. This is a very low-energy, non-invasive technology. Consider it almost like sonar, meaning you're measuring the time of flight of radio waves as they bounce back to the receiver from the microvasculature of the animal's pole region. And lastly, and this is one of the most unique features, is our ability to identify novel events and to classify them as possible indicators of distress. And so this is measured, as previously mentioned, on a 10-point scale that we have termed the Equine Distress Index. So the EDI is similar to a FICO score, which any of you who have done a credit report understand the importance of a FICO score, which is one number that gives you an overall sense of how your financial integrity is doing. And so similarly, Equine Distress Index is one number, 1 to 10, that serves as a marker of your animal's well-being. So on the lower left-hand portion, this is indicative of an animal that has very low variability in their behavior and biometrics over time, indicating an EDI score of 1.7. However, on the right-hand side is an animal that you can clearly see has an elevated EDI score of 7, which we define right at that cusp of moderate to high distress. And again, this is driven by deviation in this horse's name, Euro, so deviation in Euro's physiologic normal parameters after that 2-week learning period. A few facts about Nightwatch. On average, it offers 12 hours of power before it needs to be recharged. We use 3 lithium polymer batteries that offer about 2,700 milliamp hours, and it takes about 2.5 to 3 hours to charge this device. This is a first generation model, and so we've gotten a lot of feedback in terms of the need for extended power of at least 24 hours. And so we're happy to say that in our second generation technology, we will be able to accommodate that as well as much, much more. I've already talked about the ultra wideband impulse sensor on the last slide, but 2 other sensors that allow us to understand your horse's behavior is the 9-axis IMU that's comprised of a gyroscope, an accelerometer, and a magnometer, as well as an altimeter sensor to measure the altitude of the animal at any given time. Each smart crown is embedded with a 3G cellular chip, as well as has a Wi-Fi radio for 2.4 gigahertz single band technology. And lastly, each halter is also able to be tracked through a GNSS or GPS module. And so if you receive an alert, you know where your animal is. And this is very important for a lot of our customers who have show or performance animals that move around quite regularly. The core value prop is depicted here. So we like to say Nightwatch is an equine distress and wellness monitor for owners, trainers, breeders, and veterinarians that offers 2 things. 1, objective insight for more informed decision making, and 2, automated alerts for early referral and intervention. And we do this obviously because we are focused on improving health and performance outcome in these animals that we love. And so even though there's 58 million horses stated to be in the world, we know about only 28% of those horses fall within the performance arena. So we have decided to target those animals most in need, which are those race and show horses, the pregnant horses, as well as high-risk horses. And when I say high risk, I'm largely talking about the senior horses, those coming out of the vet clinic and the likes. We've learned quite a bit. Although we originally targeted horse owners at first, the value, I think, has been understood by all caretakers across the continuum. And so we've had to adapt our technology to accommodate their specific needs. So when we think about performance horses, primarily distress and wellness are the markers of value that horse owners are looking for. With regard to pregnant mares, foaling is a distress event in about 80% of mares. However, that still leaves a pretty significant 20% window where foaling might not be qualified as a measurable change in either biometrics and behaviors. And I know that sounds silly, and we've had customers who have purchased the Nightwatch service for their brood mares, and we've seen very little variability in those EDI scores, which has been validated by many veterinarians. And so we today say Nightwatch is a wonderful complement to mare care systems, but again, it is an area for further investigation on our front. And we've also talked about the veterinarians in terms of acute as well as chronic high-risk cases and how having a non-invasive biometric and behavior monitor can ultimately bring a value to them. So today, we have deployed more than 1,000 devices in the US, Canada, and have over 500 active users. We have 5 issued utility patents in the US, Canada, and Australia, and have 7 other patents pending, some of them in the very final stages, largely in the EU region. We've had wonderful support and accolades from both technology and the equine community. Several years ago, Forbes did a deep dive into the technology, and they described Nightwatch as one of the most sophisticated IoT devices they've ever seen for animals. And very proud of these customer testimonies ranging from breeders, veterinarians, and horse owners. However, we are not alone. And truthfully, we have only begun to scratch the surface, which is why I'm very excited to be in discussions with David and part of this HorseTech conference community, because we know we have a long way to go and we're not going to be able to do it alone. As you can see, this is a representative sample of wearable technologies that have either come and gone or are in early stages of development. And so on the left-hand side, you have those wearables that are largely focused on performance metrics of these animals. And on the right-hand side are those health-related. And so as the market becomes more and more mature, we're also able to see a bifurcation of which devices are more appropriate for veterinarian or professional use, as well as those that are intended for more the consumer use. And so Nightwatch, we think, is rather unique because we have the ability to provide both value to consumers and professionals. But again, as mentioned, our Gen 1 technology was the starting point, and we're excited to look into second generation technology because ultimately we believe that there is an opportunity for an ecosystem of equine welfare solutions that not only offer overnight protection, but they are also able to predict performance outcomes, especially in racehorses. So today we remain focused on equine welfare, specifically identifying pain and distress, but we will be looking to real-time performance metrics in racehorses, specifically about rest and recovery so that we can mitigate breakdown in these animals that work so hard for us. Foaling is a long-term value proposition for us, so we continue to acquire data and work with many partners in the US, but today we do not have the temporal algorithm to predict foaling that we hope to. And lastly, although we talked a lot about the physical hardware being the SmartHolter, this is not about the hardware. This is about the data that the hardware grants us access to. And so ultimately, with partnerships and assistance from many of you, we hope to create the largest repository of health outcomes data so that we can actually provide a change in behavior of how we treat these animals by getting ahead of problems. So there's many opportunities of working with insurance and life science companies to make that a reality. But after nearly 9 years, we know that's not going to be an easy journey, but we are committed to the long term. I think what's also very interesting is if you look at what's happened with several human wearables in the last year, the first one being Owlet, which is a US-based company that started in 2012, and they have a smart sock for infants. And a very similar value proposition is Nightwatch, in which it monitors real-time biometric data on these animals and alerts the parents to possible signs of SIDS. In June of last year, they were listed publicly at over $1 billion valuation. Also, Whoop, another US-based company in Boston that also started around 2012, while they haven't focused on the infant population, they went after more of the athletic performance side. And so they have a personalized fitness and health tracker that looks at training, sleeping, and recovery. And what's most unique about them is their personalized indices that is designed to change human behavior, not just aggregate information and present it to that customer. And so we feel this is very analogous to our EDI, which is the personalized indice for pain or distress in horses, but mentioned we will be creating additional indices of real-time rest and recovery. And they had over $3.6 billion valuation last August when they closed a Series F round. So I like to say Nightwatch is the Owlet for horses today, but we will be the Whoop of horses tomorrow. At the end of the day, we're in the business of protecting valuable animal assets, and we have a wonderful platform that's IoT-enabled, AI-driven, but horses are just one part of the larger opportunity. When we talk about value, I think it's important to recognize that value is not just monetary value. Value is emotional, it is monetary, and it is practical. And so today, we remain focused on equine asset protection, but we continue to explore opportunities to bring our technology into companion health as well as with production animals. And so I like to say horses are the first step to this much larger $75 billion market opportunity in animal health. Many analysts say that wearable tech within the animal space must correlate strongly with some other industry vertical. And so I think when we explore companion health, we're looking more as an insurtech play, and we continue to have wonderful discussions with some of the major carriers here in the US to say, how can we change the script on pet asset protection policies into more personalized protection policies? And with regard to production animals, there's many companies that have done a wonderful job using 3 and 9 axis accelerometer behavior data to predict estrus as well as rumination of aspects of many of our livestock animals. But again, it's only one part of the picture, and we believe with real-time biometric and behavior monitoring, we can have a larger, more holistic picture of the animal's distress and well-being. So with that, I'd like to conclude and invite you. We have made wonderful strides, but we can't do it alone. And so we are looking for strategic partners, both capital, clinical, and commercial partners who see a vision to leverage data science and predictive analytics to protect these animals that we all love. So with that, I invite follow-on questions following this presentation, and I thank you for your time and attention.